Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia, and I am the founder of Legacy Life Consulting. And this is our elite community. However, since March, while everybody's been at home, we have opened it up to the entire community. And we're very happy that you're here, and we've been getting a lot of great feedback. So we're going to continue to do that. And welcome. I'm here with David Stomation. Hello.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone.
And he is not only the COO of Legacy Life Consulting, he's also a coach and teacher. And tonight, he's going to talk about using anger in a safe and healthy way. What? That doesn't actually sound like it should go together, but it does. And part of the reason why I love this topic and I love David presenting it is because he truly is at peace and comfortable, not only with his anger, but with my anger. And so what I really appreciate is that I get to be fully expressed often. And that, and to me, I consider that, all joking aside, I consider that a great gift. He works with a lot of clients on this, helping them identify their anger and how they can use it to really know themselves. And so I'm going to turn it over to you. And do you want to say anything before we get started?
Yes, I would. Again, welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. This topic is near and dear to me, and why is that? It transformed my life, is what I would like to convey here. So I'm passionate and excited about this subject and what it's done for me, and would love to share it with you.
Great. Great. All right, so I'm going to turn off my screen. We'll get started. And always, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the Q&A. All right, David.
Well, super. Thank you, Cynthia. The topic tonight, using anger in a safe and healthy way. And the emphasis is on safe and healthy. And on this webinar, we're going to define anger, but not clinically. It won't be a dry definition. And I'm going to define anger in a context, how we're going to use it tonight, and make it accessible to everyone so that we're on the same page. So it won't be a dry use of the word at all. We're going to also cover unsafe expressions of anger and the cost of using anger this way on yourself and those that receive your anger. And then about halfway through, we're going to pivot to safe expressions of anger and give you examples of how you can use anger in a healthy and safe way. And then finally, being vulnerable is another example or a tool combined with a couple of other things we're going to share at the end about being vulnerable and how to convert your anger into a way to express yourself and ultimately know yourself better.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So on to using anger in a safe and healthy way. Simple questions. What role does anger play in my life? It helps us assert ourselves. It helps us feel powerful. And at times, it offers us protection. And what I'm going to be covering tonight is the asserting yourself and feeling powerful. There's actually healthier ways to do that that don't involve anger. And we'll talk about mechanisms or tools to do that tonight. And then on the topic of protection, meaning what role does it play? There's positive and negative forms of protection. One can be boundaries, which would serve a very effective purpose in a situation that might call for it. But the negative one might be protection in the sense of an old wound or something that may have happened in childhood and a coping mechanism that has been carried over into adulthood that isn't serving you very well. So those are some examples of what roles it plays. How can you harness, or how can I harness the energy of anger? There's three real elements here. One is protect yourself in extreme circumstances, much the way I just said, boundaries. The next one would be needs. And I'm going to say it 3 times because it's so important. Needs, needs, needs. Getting in touch with what you need as an individual. And what does that result in? Knowing myself. Getting to know myself better allows me to be more calm and peaceful on the inside and much easier and more pleasant to be around on the outside for others around me. And then lastly, how does it serve me? We're talking about anger. Yes, anger can serve you. It's a valid emotion would be the major point I would be making on this bullet. and that it can be used as a portal to access your other feelings and emotions to get clear on what you need. So the overarching theme tonight is that I'm talking about making anger an inward experience rather than an outward experience. And most of our use of anger is outward bound. It's blaming or attacking things outside of us. And the main theme tonight is we are not going to support that approach. We're going to coach you and give you tips and share some tools and examples on how to look inward. And this is how we get anger to serve us.
All right, so let's also talk about what are some examples? 'Cause I'm really curious about this in a safe way.
I like to think of it as the result my anger has on others. And so if I'm having an angry outburst, let's just use you and I, an angry outburst at you, Cynthia, it's going to cause in you, your experience of me will be fear and avoidance. Will be one, you'll be confused, often not understanding what the heck I'm angry about. And that will lead in the same situation, you'll be scared or fearful to ask for confirmation or clarification about why I'm angry, because you don't want anything to do with me.
Right.
And then the last one in that scenario, if we keep it the same role, I'm in an outburst, you're going to be walking on eggshells. And maybe it may be eggshells for days or weeks, depending on you trying to read or interpret my mood. So that's just one example between the two of us. This can also be extended to spouses, children, and employees or coworkers. And the second part of the example, Cynthia, I'd like to bring in is the results of anger on ourselves. And I'm going to keep it so simple. Shame. When I have an outburst of anger, and if I make you feel the ways I just mentioned, I'll walk away quietly and I'll not feel so good about myself. I want to retreat. I might even make an effort to apologize. But the main thing here, the cost or the result on myself is shame.
You know, that's so true. I mean, I would say I do not know of many people who would say they're at peace. Usually people associate anger with being hurt, like hurting other people or hurting ourselves. Yeah. And then when we do that, we just feel shameful.
Yeah. And that is a very difficult emotion to manage, because it's usually one of the more private of emotions that we don't share with anybody else.
Right.
Well, today's takeaway, this is one of my key things when I'm being presented to. I want to be told up front, what the heck are you going to do today? And I'll make it really simple. Anger is a healthy, normal emotion that can be harnessed to help you know yourself better. So it's anger is a normal, valid emotion, no more, no less than any other feelings you have, and it can be harnessed to understand and know yourself better.
All right. So you mentioned that this is near and dear to your heart, this topic. So let's talk about
Yes,
you. And I can't wait till you tell us more about that fist.
Well, in the past, I'll be speaking, of me as a man in the past, is anger was one of my principal or main emotions. I used it to protect myself from a childhood divorce my parents went through. So I guarded my heart. So I used anger to keep people at a distance. And if you were to know me and experience my anger, you would see me or experience me as righteous, passive aggressive, and my jokes would definitely have an edge and might leave you either hurt or confused. I was also, I already mentioned that, passive aggressive. So at times, it didn't happen a lot, but I would boil over into a state of rage. And this was usually screaming, yelling, or I would actually physically strike an inanimate object like a door or drywall, like the picture here. Usually in my teen years, as best I can remember, not something I do now. And I don't have a propensity of any kind to have any altercations with other humans or animals. It's usually like a wall or a door, at least in the past. I want to share an example. About 20 years ago, I was going through or finalizing a divorce, and I had moved into my own apartment. And I can't tell you how safe and relaxing that apartment felt after living in a contentious household until we decided to divorce. So I was excited and taking over and designing my home, and I was off to IKEA and getting furniture in the hardware store. And so I was in and out a lot. And so I had to go to the Lowe's hardware store, those giant, well, actually I call them men's department stores for the guys out there. And I was doing something, I don't know the project, not really relevant here, but I did engage one of the clerks for some help. And I'm not sure what happened because my memory is not clear, but I asked for help. I don't feel like he gave it to me. And I tracked him down a few minutes later on a different aisle. And when I found him, I ran up to him and I had an angry outburst and accused him of something. I don't know what. But I can't remember what the details were. But what I can tell you, I can tell you roughly the height of the man, the shape of the man, and the look on his face, along with the look on the customer's face. It was a brunette woman, and their eyes were like saucers and their jaws were dropped. And they didn't say anything. And I was beet red and I stormed out of the Lowe's. And this was me externalizing or taking my anger to the outside world rather than looking inward. Because my point being is obviously I was angry and unhappy about something in my marriage or my divorce.
Yeah. And I bet you never went back to that Lowe's again.
How do you know all this stuff?
Well, how did you feel after you had that altercation?
Well, a couple slides back, I talked about what's the inward thing, and I talked about shame briefly. And shame overwhelmed me at this event because I'm not accustomed to having outbursts like that in public. So I was buried in a wave of shame, and I never, ever set foot in that Lowe's again. I would actually go to other stores to take care of things that I needed there. So, and this is 20 years later, I still replay this event once in a while in my mind. So maybe there's some work for me to do there.
Yeah, shame is a powerful, it's amazing the power that it can have over us until we heal it.
Well, it's the lead weight of emotions. I'll share one more example or series. It has to do with the fist in the wall. In my teenage years, I would explode with rage, and I punched the inside of an automobile windshield once out of frustration. Had a conflict with a girlfriend, and I was on the bed crying, and I slugged the wall and broke the drywall. And another time as 15 or 16-year-old, I punched the door after some argument with my mother. And I still remember those vividly. And unfortunately, as an adult, I really haven't had those, but I was never really free and clear of my anger either.
Well, we're very happy about that, especially with the new home.
Yeah, I would like to report all the drywall in this house is in mint condition. Now, who am I now? None of these photographs are of me, but it gives you an idea. I have a much different relationship. The first thing I need to declare to all the people out there, I still have it. I still have anger. I am not a Buddhist monk living off in some cave someplace and in this perfect, wah-wah peaceful state. I still have anger in my life. But the difference now is that I know myself better, and I've managed to use my anger and look inward. And what that's resulted in largely is I ask for what I want, or I'm clear on what I'm feeling. So let me share a little about my path. Did I just switch in one day because I read some book or I sat down with a coach who set me straight in one meeting? No, it was gradual, but it actually happened in the course of about 3 months. And in a committed relationship some years back, my partner was not used to having me or hearing me express my needs. And so I started to tell her what I needed and what I wanted. And not that I always got it, but I started to actually express those things, what I needed and wanted. And it was gradual, but what I noticed is my levels of anger dropped gradually. And the first thing to go were my periodic bouts of rage that seemed to crop up every 4 months or so, loosely speaking. And those were scary moments for me and shameful. So in the relationship, it could get edgy and resentful. But when I started getting in touch with my needs, the gradual approach over these few months, I started to actually have a new relationship with my anger. And I'll talk more about the unmet needs on this point later. But the cycle I would go through is I would feel shameful, sad, crappy, and I would withdraw if I had an outburst. But those started to go away when I got in touch with those needs, as I shared. One more example, I mentioned earlier, some usages of anger are to protect yourselves, and I cast those in a positive and a negative. So I have a positive I want to share. I was leaving an industry that I had spent several years in working, doing well, and on my last day, the person that I reported to, the boss, accused me of being a liar for no real founded reason whatsoever. I was a stellar employee up to that point and conducted myself professionally through my whole time there. So it came as quite a surprise. And so this was a boundary for me. And so I used my anger to stand up for myself and say, no, that is not the case, and got it straight in front of the higher level manager that was there to witness it.
Okay, so I think it would be helpful for you to define anger, because there's lots of different definitions, but so that we're all on the same page, like from the lens that you are, because you've given us a lot of examples, but if you could expand on just the definition that you rely on, or one that you hold credit to.
The first one that I would say in my definition of anger in the context tonight is it is a legitimate emotion. And what does that mean? I need to contrast that with our families raising us or society teaching us. We are told to stuff our anger, that anger is not acceptable and that we're really not supposed to express it. What I'm pitching to you tonight is that it's a legitimate emotion, and I'm going to show you different ways and tools on how to access that rather than scaring people, but it doesn't have to be stuffed, and it has a real place in your life. I also would add to the definition, anger is a portal. It's a portal to knowing yourself. And I would add one more, that anger is an emotion that covers other emotions. This is significant. It's a portal, so it's covering something. Well, what's it covering? And then that's when you slow down with some of the tools we'll share tonight to find out what's under the anger. Common uses in this definition of anger. Common uses of anger are to mask fear. So if I'm fearful, unconfident, I will use anger often to compensate for that. I will use it as a mask for powerlessness, and I will use it to protect myself. I would like to leave one other definition along with this. When anger takes over us, meaning I'm not really in control of it, it's kind of got the better of me. I call this running. The anger's running me. I'm not in the driver's seat anymore. I've moved over to the passenger seat, and anger's got his hands on the wheel like the guy on the right. And this leaves damage in your path everywhere you go. So this is so important to not let your anger run you. And this is some of the tips we'll have tonight on helping you slow down so this doesn't happen. Lastly, I don't know if this quite fits the definition of anger, but I would like to call out the importance of protecting children from our anger if it's running us. And to demonstrate or model to a child that they can be angry like that leads to a lot of complications in their life as they grow up. So this is really an intergenerational point. And if you can arrest or get a healthier relationship with your anger, it's less likely to be passed on to the next generation, and you can teach them healthy ways.
Yeah, it's interesting that like the running of anger, because we've talked about like there is actually when they say seeing red, like when you get so angry or in so much fear, you actually lose your peripheral vision. And so it literally shortens all sight. And so if you can get to the point of identifying before your anger runs you, then you can know yourself.
So there's physical manifestations as well.
Absolutely, physical manifestations. Okay, great. So now you're going to talk about what we can actually do about
yes,
right?
Yes. This 3-step formula can be used in 2 scenarios. Real time, when it's coming up and you're feeling anger, which is pretty hard to do in the beginning, but that's one scenario. The second scenario, and it's more common, at least for me, is to use it in after the event, after the anger episode, or if I had feelings of anger, I use it to debrief. So I ask myself, what does my anger want to do? I want to break a window. I want to smash a plate. I want to yell at somebody. Some form of action. This is maybe more of a fantasy or an imagination for myself. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, great. This would be this is where you actually just get to express. It's not the politically correct, right?
Right. It's just, you're expressing it to yourself, not the world is the point here. And you want to know what you want to do with it. So yeah, there's no correctness to it. It's just allow you to get into deeper touch or associate with that anger. The second one, what does my anger want to say? You might want to scream at somebody. You might want to express yourself in some absurd way or unrealistic way. And these first two, they let you tap into it. But the real benefit of this formula is bullet point 3 or question 3. What do I need? And this is the real issue. So if I know what I need, I slow down. I use anger as a portal. What are my feelings underneath it? Do I feel violated? That's a legitimate thing to be angry about. Or other various needs. I won't go into a lot of details here. We'll cover more later. So this is the 3-step formula. Now let's circle back briefly and look at the first two. What does my anger want to do? And what does my anger want to say? By design, these are venting questions. They're allowing you to vent, just let some steam out, settle down a little bit, enjoy the fantasy, whatever that might be. They're venting questions. It's the real one is what do I need? The third one. That's where the real issue is. So I would say that if you gain mastery over this, and I still don't at different times, but sometimes I do, but if you gain mastery over this, you can rename this the 1-step formula and go to what do I need? And that is where it lies.
I love that. Yeah, the nice thing about the 2 questions, which are the venting, is if we don't give, let's just say, if we don't speak the unspeakable, or if we don't discharge some of that, that's where shame is really created.
Great point. Yes.
Yeah, so that's what's nice, is that those 2 that you vent, is you get it out of you. Because a lot of times with anger, we have 2 different ways that we deal with it. One is we either get it out and yell at people, or we keep it all inside and it turns into depression. So I love the first 2. And then of course, getting to the 1-step formula is always, like, if you could skip and just do 1, I'm all about efficiency. But I do think that the first 2 are really important, because it allows you just to get in touch with something that you normally wouldn't even get in touch with.
Right. And I would like to add one more personal example. When I was talking about my emotions, and I have anger and it's a central one, one of my other main emotions over the past has been shame. And what I want to share with you is when I became more in touch with my anger and what needs I had around it, in this scenario that Cynthia just painted for us in the first 2, is my levels of shame started to go down, or shame was just largely absent. But before that, my shame would actually rule me and take me into these depressive states.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to do a self-assessment. If you've been on these webinars before, you know exactly what it is. If not, there is no right or wrong answer. It is just for you, and it's just an opportunity for you to see on what side of the scale you land. So how we do this is you're going to have a pen and paper close by. You will answer questions with your eyes closed, and the very first number that comes to you, you will immediately write down without questioning it or judging it or anything like that. If you, you just trust the very first number. If you wait a few seconds and then something comes, most likely it's coming from your head, not your unconscious, but we want to get into your unconscious. Okay. So with that said, and don't worry about what question it was. When we're finished, I'll tell you what number 1, number 2, number 3 was. Okay. So with your eyes closed, I want you to take a deep breath. And as you breathe out, just drop into your body, sliding out of your head into your heart. And I'm going to ask you questions on a scale of 1 to 10, and we're going to go through it pretty quickly. So, tapping into your heart, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being totally and completely, you are at peace with being angry. First number. Question number 2, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being absolutely, yes, completely, you are at peace when someone is angry at you. Question number 3, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being absolutely yes, you share your opinion easily. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being absolutely yes, you speak up easily. Good. Next question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being absolutely yes, you are at peace with confrontation. Next question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 not at all, 10 yes, all the time, you ask for what you need at work. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 not at all, 10 yes, all the time, you ask for what you need at home. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 not at all, 10 all the time, yes, you ask for what you need with your spouse. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 not at all, 10 all the time, yes, you ask for what you need with your children. That could be young or adult. And last question, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being all the time, yes, you ask for what you want with friends. Okay, so the first one was peace, and people being peace with you being angry. The second one, at peace, someone's angry at you. The third, you share your opinion easily. Fourth, you speak up easily. Number 5, you're at peace with confrontation. And then we have the Ask for What You Need series. Number 6 is at work. 7, at home. 8, with your spouse. 9, your children. 10, your friends. So this is just for you. And you may be all over the place, like from 6 to 10, it'll be interesting. Are you just down the middle where you sometimes ask for what you need in all areas, or maybe you're really good at asking for what you want at work and not at home, or vice versa, right? Maybe I'm curious about 1 and 2. Is it the same? Maybe you're more at peace with your own anger, but not when people are angry at you, or vice versa. So it's just a way for you to measure where you are. And then the fun thing is you can re-listen to this or do the assessment later on and see where you're at to see if maybe you've improved in some area. So again, it's just for you. And it's just a tool for you to know yourself more. So we're going to continue on. And you're going to talk about different sides of anger.
Yeah, you might even think of this as an extended definition from a few slides back. And these are the 2 sides of anger, what and why. And I'll define that a little bit better. What makes us angry and why we get angry. That's how I'm approaching this portion of the presentation. So what makes us angry? In the old model, meaning it's externalized, outside of myself, spouses, children make me angry, employees can make me angry, clients and patients can do the same. And if it's self-directed, this can be loathing, which if compounded, meaning left undealt with or untreated, it can compound and build into depression. But the self-loathing is self-directed hate or anger at oneself. Let's move on to why we get angry. This is the central point of the whole talk tonight. Anger is the expression of unmet needs. And I'll say it once more. Anger is the expression of unmet needs. And this results in not knowing what we need and not knowing ourselves. So we don't know what's underneath it, what feelings we have, what we want. And if we're not expressing them, we show up in the world as angry, irritable, frustrated, argumentative, just to name a few. Now there's an interesting one here. People use it to feel powerful. So if I have an experience of powerlessness in a particular moment, or maybe I've got some old history in my life where I feel powerless, I will use anger to feel powerful. And this is an interesting one. The problem with it is it's not lasting and it's not real power. So I label it counterfeit power. I might have scared everybody in the room. They might have all backed down and left me alone, but I don't really enjoy power. They don't respect me, and I actually don't feel good inside at the end. It's a very fleeting experience. Here's another one. Motivation. Some people, I won't categorize it as only one type, but type A's, the assertive, aggressive personalities will often use anger as a way to motivate themselves. And this is a challenge. So they got to get momentum. This is how stuff gets done, whether they get angry and do it themselves or they get angry at other people and use the anger to motivate employees is one way that people do this.
Yeah, it's interesting because talking about drive,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And so it may not be so obvious, like, wow, I'm using my anger to get something done. But if you are on a mission to correct unfairness, like in the world, then you will, and you can still be motivated to correct unfairness. There's no question, but you can do it with the energy of love. But if I'm doing it, and you can always tell, there's like, depending upon what nonprofit, when their campaigns come out, because they'll either like trash one side to get you to donate or put a lot of fear in to get you to donate, or other nonprofits have a different mission where they're using it to draw you in to inspire. So definitely that's a good one for motivation. And then you mentioned the powerful, and we see that a lot. A lot of times people in the past, they have been dominated by a powerful parent, right?
Mm-hmm,
Even
mm-hmm.
an abusive parent. And so maybe they felt either small or powerless. And so they wanted to feel powerful. Now as an adult, one way that they tap into it is they can feel powerful. The other thing that happens though, is if a parent has been dominating, powerful, and the child has been hurt by it, then they just associate anger with bad, right?
Yeah.
And so then they're like, I will never get angry. My angry is hurtful. I'll stuff it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can go either way. So I thought those two were really good examples.
Yeah. So to wrap this one up, again, a major point in this presentation tonight is that anger is the expression of an unmet need. And we'll talk about what you can do to deal with that. Here's anger with sound effects.
I know, I'm such a girl. Like, I don't know why boys can do that, but men in general have better sound.
I'm holding back. No sound effects for me. Anger must be expressed. Another great takeaway from tonight's, we're conditioned often societally to not do it. And if you look at the flames in the image on the left side, that's me in a bout of rage many years ago, erupting. And those, if you look for those yellow and white helmets, those are my friends hiding behind the shield. And this is the damage rage and anger causes around us. And the same thing goes for the geyser off to the right. That's a very strong stream of water and heat. And that would be, an eruptive example of anger. And these are things that hurt people and they hurt ourselves. So think of anger as a reservoir of water. And instead of it being full of water, anger is what fills that body. And if I don't express it, or I'm not in touch with my needs and I don't know myself, I keep kind of packing away my anger. And then pretty soon the levels of my anger reservoir go up and up and up. And like any water reservoir, cracks and leaks appear in the walls. And what is that? It comes out sideways. Passive aggressive, snippy, argumentative, jokes that are borderline not funny and more hurtful. These are examples of cracks and leaks in the reservoir. We're taught by family and society to stuff it. So we think, oh, I'm supposed to put it behind the reservoir. It's what I'm told to do, right? But it still comes out sideways and hurtful. So what we're trying to turn on our side here is that, yes, violent or volatile forms of anger not necessarily should be suppressed, but we're trying to equip you with some new tools to have a different relationship, a more healthy relationship where you have peacefulness and a lightness in your life. So this is where you rely on the 3-question formula that we covered a few slides back, and ask yourself those 3 questions. This will help you get in touch with your needs, which will uncover the feelings underneath the anger. And then once you know what you need, whether you express it or not, the relief is tremendous. And I speak from a firsthand experience in my own life. So I might not ask people or tell people what I need, but if I get clear on what it is, it seems to have a calming, almost soothing effect on me. So that would be the common denominator, sorting out what your needs are. So it's a valid emotion.
Yeah, because the point is not to get to this point where there's an eruption, right? If you are stuffing, not addressing, or if you're carrying just a reservoir from the past that you haven't healed or dealt with, then it comes out an explosion. So the idea is that this is inappropriate and it's totally preventable unless you're being like attacked, and then you need all of your strength. But the idea is to start getting in touch with it, have a relationship with anger that is more peaceful and accepting, so that it doesn't come to this point.
I would like to just emphasize a remark I made earlier. These are outward expressions of anger. I'm angry at something or some system. And what we're talking about today is one of the major takeaways is looking inward at your anger. And that's where we're developing these tools and having a healthier relationship.
Good point. Okay, so we're going to do a worksheet. Now, if you're listening to the recording, you can obviously pause and take your time. If you're listening to it right now, we're going to go through it fairly quickly. I want you to jot some ideas down, and then you can always go back and take a deeper dive. Okay, so the first question, I want you just think of a recent incident that made you angry. Okay, so even just close your eyes. Just close your eyes right now and just replay that in your head. Maybe it was something that was done to you, something that you read, something somebody said. Maybe you were slighted or attacked, defensive. I want you just to replay that. And as you're replaying it, I want you just to feel your body. Like how does anger show up in your body? Does it get in your stomach? Do you get hot? For me, it's just all jaw. Like I want to bite something. Okay? So now as you're feeling into the core of it, I want you to ask, what does my anger want to do? And what did it want to do at the moment? Not that you were ever going to do it, but what did you want to do? Did you want to pout or punch and what did your anger want to say? Like, did you want to call somebody on the phone and let them have it? What did you want to say to them? Right, and so think of those first 2 questions as turning on a faucet and just letting the water run out. Good. And so usually with those 2, your body might have relaxed a little bit because you've taken some of the steam out. And now the last question is, what do you need? What did you need? Is there something you learned from it? Did you realize that you needed to take a break? Sometimes people need 5-10 minutes transition from when they come home to where they can interact with their children or their spouse. What did you need? Good. Now let's go on to the second question. So in your life, where are you not consistently speaking up? Okay. This may be at work, This could be at home. This could be with friends. Where do you stifle your voice, shut it down, or let somebody else's opinion carry and you don't speak up? And then why do you do that? What prevents you from speaking up? Is it that you don't want to lose the friendship? You don't want to make somebody mad? You don't want to be, you want to keep your job. you want to be liked. You want to be loved. What stops you from speaking up? Fear or disappointment are usually the main ones. Keeping the peace. Okay, then lastly, think about that situation or that person that you consistently do not speak up to or about. And ask yourself, do you have any resentful feelings towards that person or situation? Or are there any seeds of resentment that are planted that could start growing? All right, moving on. Question number 3.
There's 42 questions?
Question number 3?
No, I was
Oh.
joking. There's 42 questions?
I don't
There's
get the
just 4.
joke.
Never mind.
I don't get it.
There's only 4 questions.
Oh, I see your joke. Okay. Well, clearly it was funny. Okay, so number 3, do you feel unfulfilled in any part of your life? Where you long for something else or wish something was just different or someone was different? Or maybe even the circumstances right now were different. Good. You can always go back and fill in, but well, let's move on to the last question, not pages. Now I got it. I just got it. It took me that long.
Are you angry?
Getting there now. Last question. Describe your relationship with anger. Yeah, what's your relation? How does anger show up for you? Are you passive aggressive? Do you explode? Do you withdraw from the world? Maybe you express it easily and you use I statements. Like, I'm angry, I'm feeling upset. Maybe you stuff it. Maybe you feel like you have a handle on it, but it could turn at any moment. Do you have shame? Do you hate your anger? Do you either yell at people and then feel really bad and go into depression? You're going to ping pong back and forth. Good. Now, I want you to feel into, describe your father and his relationship with anger. What was your father's response with anger? Did he not express it at all and maybe just drank? Did it come every once in a while? Was the anger directed at you or at mom? And then also describe your mother and her relationship with anger. Good, and again, you can go back and review this. Okay, so let's just debrief this bit. Now this first one it's just to start to get you practicing, right? And so that one is want you to think about, because the more that you can, if you're still carrying a charge, right? If something's happened and you're still thinking about it. So David, you mentioned the lows that you're still thinking about that. You obviously can use this and get underneath that, right?
Yeah.
So if you're still thinking about something, ask these questions, get it out. And the whole point is to discharge some of the energy so that you can get to the real point. Is like, what do you need? Do you need to set a boundary? Do you need to identify something within yourself? Do you need to, and it can be something simple like, well, I need to be in a relationship where I feel love. So how can I create that? Or how can I, whatever it is. So that's what that first one was about, is start to practice. Number 2, when you're not constantly speaking up, what prevents you? This one is about, are you asking for what you need, right? Because it's one thing to know, right? In the first question, it's one thing to know what you need. The second one is, okay, now I have to do that super duper scary thing of putting it out there, and maybe you'll be rejected, right? But you still need to put it out there. So this is to get you over the hump and being at peace with what could happen. What could happen, what prevents you, so that you can be at peace with this, and then you can move forward. Because what happens is, if you know what you need and you do not voice it or speak up, you will start to have resentful feelings towards that person. And 9 out of 10 times, that other person isn't even aware of it. They're not even aware of what you need, because we've been training the people in our life to not help us with our needs. Okay. So the first one is, want you to know about it. The second one is to move into action and put it out there. The third question, do you feel unfulfilled? Do you wish for something else, long, or wish something was different? This is a question for you to feel into. Do you have all of your spirit with you, or do you feel incomplete? This is a question to identify if you are threaded or need to do an unthreading from other people. Maybe you've left, maybe you want to feel like you did when you lived in California and now you live in New York. Did you leave part of your soul in California? Do you wish that somebody else was different because you've given yourself a way to hope that they're going to change? And it's pretty impossible to change another person. Actually, it's completely impossible to change another person. So you would check that and do an unthreading to bring all of your spirit back. And then the last one, this is 2 parts. One is, you want to identify what your relationship with anger is and how you are with it, because once you know something, it gives you choice. And we're going to talk about that more in a moment, but the freedom to choose only happens when we have identified what it is. Okay? And the more that you know, wow, have I just been imprinted from my father? Have I been imprinted from my mother? And if that's the case, fabulous. Now you have a choice to heal it, doing an unthreading from the past, and move on and have a different relationship with anger. So I wanted to walk you through each one of those. So go back, do another round of it, and then you can identify which each one is. Do you want to say anything, David, about that?
I enjoy these debriefs. It really glues a lot of this together for me. On question 4, one came up for me during the review, and that was the act of rationalizing, and how we rationalize things like, someone says, "Are you angry?" No, I'm not angry. So 2 things are happening. I'm stuffing it, denying it, but there's another component, and we didn't cover that today, but it's just a limit of what scope we can take on. But there is a certain level of rationalization. So there's really our feelings of anger, but you rationalize saying, well, he's under a lot of stress, I have to take it. I don't know if you can add to that, but my point being is, stay aware and cognizant if there's rationalization taking place around the feeling of anger, and give yourself a moment to just pause or suspend the rationalization and go into what you're really feeling. And that's the inward look we're talking about.
That's really, really good. Yeah, I think it was towards the beginning, and it's simple as, it's okay to feel angry,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's okay. So I think that's really good, because we will do that, is we'll make it okay. We'll make other people's behavior okay. We'll make things okay instead of actually feeling it, because
Right.
if we can feel it and be honest, then we have a choice to do something with it. But if we don't even allow ourselves to feel it, then we won't do anything with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then the reservoir of anger builds.
Right.
Anger is the expression of an unmet need. I talked about this a few minutes ago. The presentation that I'm giving today on this topic comes from many places, whether it's from a book or books I've read, direct experience in my Sandpoint Men's Group, which is a non-religious, all walks of life group of guys that just want to make improvements in their life, or my own personal experience. But one of the books I read that I consider very important is Marshall Rosenberg's seminal book, Nonviolent Communication. And that's where this phrase comes from. Anger is the expression of an unmet need. And if one of you out there likes formulas or simple things to stay focused on, this is probably the most potent way to get a handle on your anger. What I would share in my experience in my men's group and coaching with clients, another emphasis, slow down. Use the three question formula, but that helps you slow down. And when we slow down, we get clear on what we're feeling and what we need. And this will help us look inward. If we're not slowing down and we're actually speeding up, we will take our anger to anything near or around us, meaning the outward world, externalized rather than inward. And so one of the tips that I've noticed over and over with just about everybody I've worked with, including myself, is I need to slow down to get there. So this is an example of harnessing your anger, and this would result in a more meaningful and lighter life, and one filled with peacefulness.
Yes, and choice. So we mentioned choice. The worst feeling in the world is to feel trapped. And we are a country of got to have our freedom, but the freedom to make a choice or to feel differently is huge. And the only way that we can really get into choice is to know ourselves. And we always have a choice, whether that is we have a choice to feel what we're feeling, we have a choice to decide something different, we have a choice to get out of something. And it's amazing how we often don't do this. But when you can really identify what you are feeling and have knowledge, then you can make a new choice. And you can do this always. We were just out to dinner the other day, and one of our friends, she moved here from California, and she lives in this beautiful area in our town, looking over the mountains, and it is just gorgeous. And if you're not familiar with Sandpoint, Idaho, there are lots of trains here. So beautiful spot. And then when she moved here, she realized, my goodness, there are a lot of trains, and she could hear them in the middle of the night, and they're loud. And she was thinking to herself, I don't know if I could stay here because of all these trains. I love everything else, but there's just so many trains. Then a week later, as she's contemplating this, she had a friend from Texas arrive. And her friend from Texas she was a train woman. It was in her industry, like her old family money or something. And she loved it. She loved all the sounds. She could even tell just by the sound of the tracks, which way they were coming, by the clickety clack. And she just loved it. And as her friend is telling her how much she loves the trains and how soothing, she realized inside herself, oh, you mean I have a choice on this? And so from that moment on, she decided that she loved trains and that they were soothing, and she's completely at peace with where she lives right now. So you always have a choice. From this moment on, you can choose to be more peaceful and have a better relationship with your anger. And there's a great gift in that for yourself and for the people in your life when you do. All right, being vulnerable.
I'll lead with this one if you don't mind.
Please.
Step one, know yourself. Now, being vulnerable is combined. So imagine you've built up everything we've been teaching up to this point. Anger is the expression of an unmet need. I'm getting in touch with my feelings, and now I know what I want, and I know myself better. So the next step, now that you know yourself, is how do I communicate that? I statements. One of the common things that I have done in the past, and I see with others when they're angry, it's you did this, or they are no good, or there might be railing against a system that doesn't work for them, political or a business, but it's all outward and it's labeling things that are outside of yourself. And this doesn't work. So when we talk about being vulnerable, it's the I statement. When you did that, Cynthia, I felt angry. So I'm owning my experience or owning my emotional experience in it. So that's the I statement. This is key, and it's very easy to slip out of and start using you and them and they, but it's important to come back to I. And I does two things. One, you own it and you own your experience, which leads to a sense of powerfulness. And two, it helps the other person who's listening to you or hearing you hear the I statement. They can connect and associate with an experience you're having and take it in much differently and not make it personal.
That's great. Yeah. Being vulnerable is me speaking about myself and my experience and my feelings, not me speaking about you and how you're making me feel and
Yeah.
you and you and you and you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference.
Yeah. So how do we use anger to understand our needs? Let's just recap. We're winding up. Major point, anger is a legitimate feeling. We're showing you new ways to coexist and use it to help you know yourself better. And in every single example I've ever seen picked apart, evaluated, if there was anger, there was an unmet need right behind it. It might have taken a little while to uncover it, a couple layers of an onion, but there is always an unmet need behind it. And if you're disciplined and you are willing to search out and slow down and figure out what your needs are, the resulting anger decreases, and the anger reservoir goes down, and actually goes down rapidly. I pivoted on mine in about 3 to 4 months total. And then lastly, safely express your anger by being vulnerable. We just talked about that, by using I statements and having people know what you're feeling or are experiencing rather than you blaming or labeling them.
Great. And so we're going to step into action on the next slide. But if you are at a place with your anger where it is just bubbling up and it feels like it's out of control, then that means that there's something in the past you need to heal. You need to get it with your coach. If you don't have a coach, you can contact David or I, and we'll connect you with one, or you ask questions or whatever. But this is you getting to the point to have a relationship with your anger. If you can have a relationship with your anger, or if your anger is running you, as he mentioned, then you need to do some probably major healing around it from the past before you can get to this. All right.
Action summary. I love this, and I do this with all my clients after each call or get together, and that is, how to transmit and take some of the learnings or awarenesses into something you can play around with and practice with immediately or the very next day. And so in this case, I encourage you to feel your anger. Don't stuff it. Get in touch with it and use it to associate and discover other feelings that you have. Usually there's another emotion under the anger. The second one, use the 3-step formula. And we've gone through this already, and you can use steps 1 and 2 to vent or do a climb down, but to have full expression. And the key one there in the 3-step formula is, what do you need? And if you get closer and closer to what you need, your anger will decrease and you'll be much more peaceful inside. And then lastly, safe expression. We're emphasizing this I statement. I can't tell you how important this is and how easy it is to slip out and not use, and combining them with being vulnerable and sharing something, deeper or impactful.
Yes, so that is the conclusion. We just want to say a few other things before we completely wrap up. And again, what is most important to me in general in doing this work is impacting the world, right? Is creating a beautiful world. And we need this more than ever. And the world right now is volatile. People are angry for not a lot of reason, but it's very important to them. Identify what you're mad about, get at peace with it, because then you can hold space or understand or be at peace with other people's anger. And that's the real gift. If you can allow somebody else to express their anger without you taking it personally, attacking them, letting them defuse it, then you'll get to what's underneath it. And so that's my wish in this presentation.
Yes, I just thought of a metaphor, and it's using the alphabet and vowels. And I want to use it to emphasize the importance of doing anger work, understanding it, how to harness it. Think of anger as one of those handful of vowels that make the English language work. And without that vowel, the language doesn't work. And so it's one of the key fundamental areas of personal development is to sort out the anger and think of it that way. And if you spend time investing in your personal development and say one of these vowels, anger, you'll have the whole vocabulary or an entire vocabulary available to you through the alphabet.
Great.
I just thought of that.
That was good. Next slide. Okay, upcoming events. We put on hold our Inner Legacy for obvious reasons. We're working on a virtual presentation. However, there's been a surge in private coaching. So we're absolutely available for that. If you're interested in coaching or the virtual program, please contact one of us and we would love to connect with you.
Yes.
So thank you very much. As always, love our community. Love to all of you. Hope that you are enjoying these seminars, webinars in this series, and we will continue to do them. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, week, and if you have any questions, email us.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Good night.